This is the Outliers Edge podcast, where we champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity by taking them to the edge of their comfort zone so that they can lead us to the edge of what's next. I'm your host, Niiamah Ashong. Let's do this. Hey y'all, Niiamah Ashong here, founder of Outliers Edge and the leader of the Trailblazer Oasis, where we bring together and champion the leaders who are shaping the next era of humanity. I think I just said shaping, so I'll say that again, shaping the next era of humanity. Right now we get a chance to play with one such trailblazer. His name's Ryan Brady. Ryan and I recently met here, and he's like, and we've been having a conversation, getting to know each other, and it was just like, I gotta hit record. Like, let's just jump in here, because the process of us getting to know each other, I think will benefit any trailblazer that's listening to this, and any outlier that's listening to this, and it also gives us space to make sure that your story we can hear your story, but like on this show, in this experience, what we're really focused on is like serving and seeing like not just the path that you've gone by, but like we are outliers. We're looking to see like where do you go from here, and how do you navigate a path that no one else has done, and the experience of working with you, the experience of being in conversation with you from that perspective is really going to be truly enlightening. So I'm excited for the conversation. I'm excited to get to know you here. You have great energy. Let's go and play with that. Welcome to the conversation, Ryan.
Let's do it.
All right, Ryan. So help me. Let's do this in a couple of different questions. What do you want me to know about you?
That's a great question. Well, I would start with something that we can go a lot of places from me saying this one thing. And it was really my starting point with entrepreneurship and just with taking the road less traveled and all these kinds of things, right? So when I was 17 years old, I was driving to high school, 6:30 in the morning, 7, and I was speeding like a lot of teenagers do, and the road was curvy, right? So the speed limit was 25 miles per hour. I was going 39, way too fast. I go around a turn. Right when I go around the turn, there's a truck in the middle of the road, like a construction truck, right? And in that moment, I have a decision to make. It's either hit the brakes, the car will go crazy and, scatter everywhere, crash, probably kill everyone in my car, which was me and my brother at that time, and the driver of that car, right? Or turn to the right to avoid it. I chose to take the chance, not knowing if I would survive, turn to the right, and did not crash with the car, but there was no road to the right? So there was an 80-foot cliff, 25 meters for those non-American listeners. Car does 6 flips on the way down the cliff. I break my neck, my back, my wrist, my elbow, my collarbone. I have something called a traumatic brain injury. I was in a coma for a week. And I don't know if you're familiar with TBIs, traumatic brain injuries, but they're very, very much like fingerprints, right? In the sense that each one is unique and identical. They're unique, not identical, right? So mine, it impacted my long-term memory. What happened to me, I woke up from the coma and I forgot 2 things we all learn as kids, all humans. What do you think those 2 things were that I forgot at age 17?
Let me see here. The 2 things that would come to me are talking and walking. Those are the 2
Bingo.
things.
So I forgot how to speak my first language and I forgot how to walk. So that was when I was 17. I'm 22 now.
Real quick, I can feel we're about to go through a time jump here. But do you mind if we just slow down a little bit with this?
I told you that because you can go anywhere with it. So I just gave you a bunch of clay. You mold it however you please.
We shall mold together here, Ryan. Firstly, I'm glad to be in conversation with you. I'm glad that like with all the flips, with all that thing here, it's like I hear the way like you can say it right now and it feels like information. But like it was your life and experience here. Like, how's your brother?
He's all good. Yeah, he had nothing physical, a few scratches, but nothing like me.
Okay. All right. Well, like let's slow down into that really quickly here, because you're gonna find like there's it informs who we are,
right?
With it, right? So you were just going to school, just a day like any other day. you went around a corner too fast and then made a choice, right? It resulted, you named a couple different places, like it was interesting, like boom, 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 boom. So like had a couple different, many different injuries. Are those healed for the most part? Like kind of curious about, like, that's been 5 years now.
So I obviously learned my first language again.
Yeah. What is your first language?
English.
Yeah.
Let's
We were
see.
talking about Spanish and things like later on. So I was like, let me just make sure that
Right.
we make no assumptions.
It was interesting because I had lived in Mexico the summer before, just for the summer. Yeah. But because you notice the two things that I forgot were my long-term memory. Yeah. My short-term memory compensated, right? So when I woke up from the coma, I couldn't speak English. I could understand it perfectly, oddly enough. Yeah. But I can only speak in Spanish. So thanks to being in California, ton of Latinos, and I could have Latino nurses to be able to translate between me and the doctor and those things. So yes, English is my first language. Okay. Right. What was your other question there? I went on a tangent. You mentioned something. Well,
no, that I just wanted I wanted to just basically slow down into it all. Let's just continue. My general thing is like, I like to just be in the moment. So right. I don't have anything like, I don't have any diagnosed memory issues or anything like that, but my number 2 fear is losing my memory. And interestingly enough, like I don't do anything with it. So like I feel, here goes something. What most people don't know is that like those people say like, yeah, we have a lot of presence. And the reason for that is that like when I try and think about the future, I get freaked out. I get worried and I get freaked out.
Right.
And when I think about the past, I just my memory just doesn't hold. Like I've lived a great life. I'm just like, I don't have the pathways back to it. So right. When you talk about this thing here, it's not diagnosed. It's not on that level, but like I'm feeling you. There's elements here that really get felt. So I don't know how your memory is now, but I'm going to be like very much like how I play, which is like just to be present. Like I might have said something beforehand, but right now, this is what's present. Let's go with that.
So I remember what you were saying. So we'll go with this. All injuries healed, fortunately. I was very lucky. I mean, people have gotten in some way worse kinds of car accidents and way worse has happened to them. But it was really, talk about trailblazing, making your own path. That was a big time wake up call, because before that I was not super motivated in life. Thought I'll die when I'm 90, 70, 80, something like that. And I just kind of was floating along until that point where I'm like, hey, wake up. Come on, Ryan. Talk about, universe talking to me, or God, or call it whatever you want. It was like a wake up call for me.
Yeah. This is like you had quite an experience to get this here. Like I'm interested in seeing where we should go. Right. So now I think we can go to where you are right now. So like your story started 5 years ago. Like you couldn't remember your first language. You were there in this, you were speaking Spanish. You went through a recovery process, right? And now me and you are talking five years later, right? Tell me a little bit about like what your life is like right now. What's going on for you right now? Help me get to see the Ryan of today.
Right. So today I am sitting at the same place I was born and raised. I'm just back here for the summer. I go to university in Madrid, Spain, to a university called IE University. It's all in English. Super international school. I love it because there's people of all different mindsets that go there. Study business. So it's, business in America is like business in America, right? There's this way of going about things. It's totally normal. But I love it there because it's different mindsets where you have one end goal, but you have different cultures and thought processes as far as how to get to that end goal. And I think it's really cool to just hear all of those. So I go to school there, working for a company called Digital Prodigy, which is a startup based out of Florida. I love the people there. I love what we're doing. We're helping, me at least, I'm helping speakers, authors, and coaches, building mobile apps for them. I'm loving it. make an impact that every coach has, like yourself, just scaling it on a, more impactful level. Definitely see a future there. What else would you like to know after what I just told you there?
Yeah. So you also told me that there's something that you're passionate about in terms of like helping out different students and things like that. Would you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Sure.
I just want to make sure that people have a chance to get to see you in the game you're playing right now, and then we'll go off and take things in different directions.
So what I was looking at the way things worked. Like I mentioned, I was, lacking motivation to really do much. I was, growing up in Northern California, there was very much a path, in quotes, that you take that, oh, you do this to be successful. I thought, oh yeah, the goal is to make as much money as possible. And I thought it was based on the research I did at age 16, 17, it was, oh, it's engineering, right? The engineers make the best salary. And so what I did is I applied to colleges for engineering and that kind of thing. And then that car accident I mentioned, that happened. And in those moments, it really made me rethink a lot of things. Like, at the end of the day, it's not the money that I was really concerned about, right? It was, what can I actually put my whole passion into? So for those students that I'm talking to, it's how can they get the impact that I got of having my life turned upside down, my body destroyed, my mind destroyed. How can they get that without having to have any of that actually happen to them, right? Because if that was such a powerful impact, like I mentioned to you before, it was like a slingshot effect. So how can I transfer that slingshot effect to other students? And maybe they're in university, maybe they're in high school, maybe they're not doing either of them, but they're around that age. It's, hey, you know what, Ryan, I want to do something different, but I don't know how to start. No older adults really take me seriously. I don't know what steps to take. I just have this potential and this motivation to do something different for whatever reason that is, right? And so it's for those students, I talk to them, I motivate them, I inspire them, and then I tell them exactly what I did to get to where I am now, and be satisfied with their life, both professionally and, with your professional life comes also your personal life, like I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh yeah, we're gonna play with some of this here. I'm hearing some notifications show up here. This is on me. I didn't ask you to pause any of that, but there's some that's coming through, and I want to make sure that doesn't get in the. Yeah, it just happened right now, and just
here,
right?
Slack or LinkedIn. Let me close.
All right. So as you're closing that there, so I'm hearing that, like, okay, like you put yourself in a position to actually go out and say, like, hey, I'm going to take action on this. Like, I'm in Madrid for the most part. Like you're actually like in multiple places. You're like in Madrid. Right. You're working for a company that's based in the States. You're working with youth and really just helping, especially those who like see like different paths available for them or don't see a different path available for them, to be able to acknowledge and see where things can go from there. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah, very well. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about like this slingshot thing, and then and this is important for me, because we're going to spend some time. We talked before here about like, hey, let's have a really powerful conversation, and we'll do that by bringing in some coaching and things like that, right? One of my gifts is to be able to understand other people's gifts, like, and to be able to help them leverage it along the way. So you talked a little bit about like the slingshot, like a slingshot effect here. Like, what does that mean to you? And like, how does that tie in for others?
Right. So when I use the term slingshot because it's, at least in my understanding, a very universally understood term. The thing you pull back, brings you far back, and then you let go, and it shoots the thing off with incredible speed and incredibly farther than it was when you first pulled it back, right? So I use that metaphor because when what happened to me that I just told you about, the car accident, right? It brought me back to, where I was mentally and emotionally and physically to a similar place where I was when I was, like really young, right? Not knowing how to speak English or walk, English being my first language, right? Fortunately, I got all my memory back, just as the brain healed, right? But that slingshot was from the wake-up call that I mentioned, right? I realized, okay, I got taken out of the school system. I got homeschooled for an entire semester and then went back with, way eased up classes. Fortunately, I did graduate on time from high school. But after going through that experience and, me thinking, I have to get A's in all my classes or B's, and attend all my classes. I can't ditch classes. It really took me out of that environment, and everything was okay. And that was really interesting for me to see, hey, I can do something totally different and I'll be okay. It's not like the world's going to end with this happening. And so with that perspective, I really started, and that understanding of knowing, okay, I can do something totally different. And it can actually result very, very, very positively in my life and for other people and those kinds of things. And what I also realized is, doing something different than what the 99% do, whether you want to say it makes you, part of the 1%, whether that's, in personal development or financially or whatever it is, just doing something different. It just makes life really up to yourself, as opposed to, for lack of a better term, like a cog in the system, a hamster on a hamster wheel. My fear was going to be, I'll be 50 and have done everything everybody told me in the system I grew up and told me to do. I get there and I, have achieved everything I ever had wanted, what I was told to want. I look around and I, get depressed because I thought I made it and I don't like where I am. Right. So fortunately I had that wake up call to slingshot me and, get me to not be afraid of taking these risks and doing these things I'm scared of, and doing these new things, the first of which was going to university outside of the US and in a non-English speaking country. That was a huge risk, right? But I realized, hey, you know what? I know what all my friends are doing. All these people I've seen graduate, they're going to college in the US. US is an awesome, university education system. But I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to try something different. And of course, coming back, now I'm back, speaking fluent Spanish and being in California. It's super helpful to speak English and Spanish. And so it really, there's obviously many other ways that it's pushed me forward from this experience directly and indirectly. But does that give more clarity?
Yeah.
By Slingshot?
Let me ask you that, do you feel like you got it?
100%.
Yeah, that's my thing. Yeah. So as we go, because we're about to shift here, we're about to shift into a place where I've been hearing your story so far, and Ryan, it's cool to be in conversation to see how you decided to take that experience, right? And you're like, okay, that's gonna be my slingshot, and perhaps the way that I thought things had to be, they don't need to be, and it doesn't mean and that's not the end of the world at all, right? And so I hear that you're putting yourself in different situations, different environments where it's different. And let me just check in also on something. It also feels like it's a little bit more of this is also what I want. It's I know that I want to live abroad, so let me just go do that.
Right.
As opposed to, am I getting some of that?
Right. As opposed to waiting until I graduate from college, or, when I'm 25 or 30 or whatever. And hey, whatever. Who's going to tell me no? I could pay for it. University is way cheaper there. Living also. So I thought, hey, let's try it out. And then with all that came, oh my goodness, as a student, you can use LinkedIn and, reach out to business professionals when you're 20 years old and ask them for help. And they want to help you because they look at you, as someone, wow, this young kid is motivated enough to reach out to me and ask for help. It was amazing, right? And the path that Slingshot has really put me on.
Awesome. So let's stay here with the slingshot and the accelerating and the path that you're on right now. It brought us into connection here, right?
Right.
There's a lot of people in the world, and somehow we came into the same spot together. And one of the things that I'm leaning into is one of my gifts, which is just to be with people and co-create, whether it's coaching, whether it's in conversation, whatever it is, it's just setting up the space for a really powerful conversation around something it is that you like to create in the world. Would you be interested to go and play the rest of this conversation from that perspective?
Sure.
All right, cool. So just so you know, sure doesn't really work for me. Either yes or no is good, but like one of the things that I'm hearing from you is like at a certain point you're like, let me just choose what I want. I want to be intentional about it, rather than let the life happen to me. Sure,
Right.
to me is like an indication of like life happening at you, versus like yes or no. So it's up to you. But if you're down for it, I'm happy to like look at something, an aspiration you have or a challenge you're facing, and just like help you like navigate through that right now. That's something you're
Yes,
interested in.
let's do it. Yes, why
All
not?
right,
Yeah,
let's
I'm
do
down.
it. All right, cool. So let's do this here. For this part here, Ryan, like I'm in the space of like, let's just have the conversation. This is what I find is that like my invitation is be selfish, you know. This does like this part of the conversation, it could go out live, it may not go out live. I don't edit things unless like it's specifically asked to. So if it goes out live, it will be me saying it
Right,
doesn't need
right,
to, that's one of the choices I've made. I'm like, I just want to live my life, and just like if like every moment that happens is something to be celebrated,
right,
including setting things up. But I do want to like just kind of remove any kind of pressure or any kind of like expectation of like this has to be helpful to anyone. Please don't be helpful. Like this has to like this has to have replay, like just allow it to be. What I found is that the more selfish that someone is in the conversations, like in this part of the conversation, the more universal, the more applicable it is
right,
to other people, because it's like how do I say it? It's like we're getting to the parts that matter that most people don't actually bring up most of the time,
yeah, I get it.
So yeah. So that's one thing. Are you good in this conversation with me hiding nothing and holding back from nothing from you?
Go for it.
All right, cool.
But yes,
I'm with you. There's a part of me that's also like, I'm like, oh, this is how, like, I have a business and a movement all around like people being themselves. So I'm like, let
right,
me make sure I get the Ryan here. I think I get a bit of Ryan. So
you got it. Yeah, yeah.
and that which does not translate, I'll let you know. Okay. Um, Here's another thing. So I'm going to be here to serve you, not please you.
Gotcha.
Are you good with that?
100%.
All
Yeah.
right, cool. And like I have a track record of having life-changing experiences and conversations, right? You've had a life-changing experience, like, and I'm really open to like this being a life-changing conversation. Like what I hear from you is like you're on a completely different trajectory than you would have been 5 years ago.
Oh yeah, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for me, and what I also hear is that like that trajectory is yours and yours alone. Like no one else has done this. No one else is gonna have had the Ryan like experience. Like this is you, right? And so what I like, my commitment is to like let go of any expectations and really just be in the space with like, what is it that Ryan needs next?
Gotcha.
Does that feel good to you?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and play and to see where it goes. Ryan, if you're going to be really selfish, if there's something that like right now you need it, either in terms of let's do this, yeah, in terms of your goals for the future, or in terms of the problems that you're having. Like, if there's one way that I could really, no, I don't want to ask it that way, but what would make this an incredible conversation for you? Let me make this like a truly unforgettable conversation for you.
So this both applies to me as a trailblazer, but of a lot of other people. And I say it, yes, to be selfish, but also because I think a lot of other people that are around my age, that are, on their own path, may be having as well. Right.
Yeah.
And it is, sorry, you're going to say something?
I'm gonna pause really quickly and just make sure that like I'm curious of what it is, right? But I'm also like, it doesn't matter if no one else feels it. It
Okay.
might be you might be the only person in the world who feels this way,
Okay.
right? At least you might think so, Ryan. And then you say it out loud, and everyone's like, yes, I thought I was the only one. I never.
Right.
So like I don't worry about anyone else, because I promise you, when you let go of that, you will reach so many people. It's a weird phenomenon, but just don't care. Like just be
Okay.
here for you.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I've made my decision, but I wanna run it by here as well, because like I've learned, shit can hit the fan. Sorry for my language. Stuff can go really wrong, right? So the dilemma that I'm facing, right, is I'm, on this life path that I'm loving the work I'm doing for this company, Digital Prodigy. I'm loving the team, loving the money I'm making, loving the life it's given me. It's remote. I can, make good money, travel, do it anywhere. I didn't need a college degree to get there, right? I'm still in university, but I'm already in the quote unquote dream job, dream company that where I want to be, right? And I can see myself here at that company the next at least 3 to 5 years, and everything is changing, and it's a startup. I have such a hand in it, like such a pivotal role that I wouldn't get that at a typical corporate job, right? And I love how deep into the company I am, right? But I got university too. And university is, long story short, the dilemma is, well, there's nothing more, at least in the next few years, that university is going to give me. And the value of the college degree is, I'm not so sure what it gives, because I'm in that perspective, and I don't know what yours is, but if someone can prove themselves as far as a skill, whether that's lead gen or whatever skill it is, that for me is the credibility that I need to hire that person or work with that person, or the energy I'm exchanging with that person. If I can see myself wanting to, have those kind of conversations, that's why I choose to continue working with them. Long story short, don't really care about the degree, right? So the dilemma is not right now dropping out, just because I need to make, save some more money. But next June, I won't be officially done with university as far as graduated. But I've set some standards for myself that, Ryan, if you do this in work and in your professional life, you don't need the degree. It's not giving you much. And now with the internet, we have so much stuff we can learn. I mean, like when you brought me on here, did you check out if I had a college degree? I'm assuming probably not, right? So what questions do you have as a coach after hearing that you think could help me either realize I'm totally wrong or realize I'm totally right, but just bring me to one side or the other, right?
Right. I don't think there's any question I have that will help you realize you're totally any either of those things, right? Okay. Like as I hear you speak, I'm like, there's merits in everything, right? We can write a pro con list. We can play out a couple different scenarios and so on and so forth. As I hear you speak here, there's an element of the things that I'm hearing, the things that I get curious about, right? Because I realize my thing is not to help you make the decision, but to keep giving you more data points for you to make, for you to be like informed choices, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. And it's not about my data points. Like, I'm not gonna have lived your life. Like, I don't know what your drive is. I don't have your, like, it's totally different, right? So it's not, right. I'm not gonna try and be coming in from a mentorship perspective, right? But what I do want to do in this space then is just give you some chances to like just explore this question. Yes, and just like, does that work for you, Ryan?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, cool. One of the things that I'm hearing is like a 3 to 5 year time frame. It's like, look, in the next 3 to 5 years, like, I got a company that I love. I'm doing work that I love. Like, things are happening at the startup. This is going on, all that stuff, right? And it's like, cool. If I look out through 5 years from now, like, I'm good. The thing for me is, the thing that comes to my mind is, okay, what happens in what about years 6 and beyond? What about years 15 and beyond? So on and so forth. And I ask this here, but like, we can even stay in the 5 year time frame. Let's go back 5 years ago. You're 17 years old, right? Like, could you see yourself where you are right now?
No, I would have never even imagined it, right?
Yeah. I and so there's a part of me that's like, that like hears that and says like, Ryan, you're one of these people on this earth that, like, depending on how you choose to live your life, you might be in a place that you would have never ever imagined. Right. When I'm working with like trailblazers and outliers like you, who are just doing things that are outside of the norm, one of the things I look for is, I call it like the support in your capacity to I call it playing the game, you know, to be able to stay on whatever, to be able to choose whatever path you want, not even to stay on a path, but to be able to choose it. Right. For some people, we're talking about energy. We're like, all right, and energy might be like, are they tired every night? Do they keep burning themselves out, so on and so forth, right? But energy might also be for entrepreneurs out there, like, do they have the runway? Do they have the cash? Are they able to stay in the game, right? For you, the thing for me comes out to like, what's going to give you the most options? Because I feel like you're the kind of person who's like, I want to take advantage of whatever life offers me, or what I want life to offer me. That's what I'm kind of getting from our conversation. So what do you feel will give you like the most options?
Right. So I've definitely had that internal battle as far as the options. And up until about 7-8 months ago, I had so many options as far as, I was working 3 jobs at the same time, and university, it was just hard. And what I realized is, one thing that I was dealing with as an entrepreneur was, I think it's called the shiny object syndrome, right? Where you have so many options that, I heard a metaphor. Someone said you can't have your brain be a pizza, in the sense of your area of focus is, if it's a circle, you got 30 things right here, you're looking at a pizza, you can't do it all, right? And so, yes, options are important, given that they don't actually impact me negatively from having so many options, that I can have a few options that I like, that I can go with, that will help me and benefit me, but not so many that I get distracted and it makes it so it impacts me negatively.
Yeah. So that's we're talking. I like what you're saying here. To me, they feel like there's 2 different elements to it, right? One of them is having options, and the other one is being able to be a great decision maker once the options come. One of them is the availability of options. The other one is like focus and prioritization, right? They're 2 totally different things, right? You told me at age 17, before the accident, like, I'm going to be an engineer. And you were applying to different schools, and you had options as to which school you were going to go to, and your life went in a completely different direction, But then you also said, like, but I happened to be in physically a place in the US where there were Spanish speakers around. I had that support. So when I think about that, that's like, wow, to have had the resources and have the options available for you at that moment for where you were, not only how fortunate it is, but it's like, I'm honestly really glad that it was there. And I think about okay, I'm glad you had access to that, where this conversation, for me, the element comes to in 5 years time, I just get the sense that you could want to do anything, right? So you said you were 17, 22, 27,
Right.
You might be like, entrepreneurship maybe, but I found that investment banking is my thing, or whatever else is out there. So so there's this element to me, this kind of goes into, from that perspective of if you're on a slingshot kind of life, right, you're going to be accelerated much faster than those around you, and having different kinds of experiences, and you don't have to have an answer for it right now in this moment, but to me, it's that space of great, the next 3 to 5 years set. If you wanted to do something completely different afterwards, right, that built upon whatever slice of pie you chose at the time, but you're like, I just don't want to eat pepperoni forever, but I can eat another slice of pie, I would be thinking around in those things about what gives me the most options. Is it okay, let me enter the workforce. I'm learning sales. I'm learning these things. I'm seeing all these different pieces of an organization. And if I go to some other organization, I'll always have some skills to leverage. Is it, yeah, you know what? I stayed, I got my degree. they're like it seems like it's an organization where you can keep working at right now. So it doesn't seem like it's an either or, like, even though you kind of put it as an either or, it's more like, it feels kind of like, do I accelerate my experience at this organization by about 6 months and like not get the degree? How much longer would you, after June, how much longer would you have to stay in colleges?
After this coming June? Like
you said like June you wouldn't have it, right?
It would be, this June I wouldn't have it. It would be at least 2 to 3 more years.
Okay. Yeah. So it's, do I accelerate my time there? Would you be working for this other company at the same time? Because you said you've had 3 jobs, I think. Of course, right? So like
one company I'm with. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now, like I used to be an actuary, or actuarial consultant. I used to like spend my time like doing math things, and so now I'm looking at this from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Now, the perspective I'm looking at this is like, marginally, what do you gain versus marginally, what do you lose, right? So the current scenario is you play out both. You basically, in my mind, is like, the current scenario is you stay in the organization and you stay in college. You can do both simultaneously, you're saying. So what you would gain, if I'm getting you right, because I do hear your passion for this organization, what you would gain is essentially somewhere between, you get like a more concentrated period of work experience during that time, right? So you might be accelerated in your career about 1.5 to 2 years, somewhere in there, with like the extra hours you might be able to put in that you wouldn't be able to put in because you're given to school. Does that sound about? Does that sound pretty fair?
Yeah, I would say I've managed university pretty well with it so far, but that was because I wasn't, in all honesty, I wasn't going to all my classes, right? And sounds super ignorant. You could even say spoiled, to have a college education but be choosing to work instead. So that's the dilemma. But yeah, I would say about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years more in the workforce is what I would be getting out of it.
Yeah. So I like the tool that I'm bringing in this case here, because again, like, you're the only one that's living your life, man. So so we have to, so I'm gonna just keep bringing out things out here, and someone might give me a call like, yo, you should tell them definitely do this, but I can imagine getting calls on both ends, so it's like I'm not a mentor, I'm a coach. My thing here is to like, is to give you some things here, and you're like, to help you make some of the choices. So this to me feels like it's the this is like, it's a bit of margin, and at the same time, like from the actuarial days, it like reminds me of like the concept of from economics of opportunity cost.
Right.
It's like what are you giving up by staying here, right?
Yeah.
Have you done an opportunity cost assessment yet? Like a full on, like straight up, like not just, oh well, I could be doing more, like kind of in your head, but like literally sitting down, getting out a piece of paper, writing out like the real scenarios are for you.
Yeah, and it was tough, and I also meditated on it for about an hour to really figure out what I wanted, and why I was even still in college. So yeah, I did.
Okay.
Maybe not on like the nitty gritty extent that I think you might be thinking, but I touched on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a thing here where it's like, it feels to me like an important decision that like an hour of meditation doesn't necessarily feel like it gives it like the space that it would need. And I recognize we're in this conversation. It's not like you've made the choice, right? You're in the process of it, right? So there's an element of this here that I'm just going to give you a couple of different tools to like help you like keep being about, like, I think that's it. I know I have to say something because I can feel it getting in the way of it, and I feel like I'm kind of apologizing around it. And I told you I was going to hide nothing to hold nothing back. So let me start with that, right? All right, cool. So what I want to just say here is like, I feel that my gut would be like, stay in college, just finish this thing out, and then like you get everything else, right? That's both from my experience, the way I was raised, all those other things. I understand there's a lot of external factors in it, right? I can feel myself actively not trying to push you one way or the other.
Right.
But I was feeling this a little bit too much energy being spent to like not have that, like, I don't want him to know how I feel. I'll tell you, like, this is where like I would naturally go with the conversation.
I mean, you mentioned your parents immigrated to the U.S. from Ghana. I would assume
Yeah.
if they're from there and they're telling you, they would be like yes or yes, you're going to college in America, son. Like that's not an option. It's the way it's going to be for you, right? We worked our ass off to get here. You're not going to waste that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, like I talk about being an actuarial consultant, and I said earlier, I was an actuary, and then I immediately said right afterwards, actuarial consultant. And the reason I say that there is because being an actuary is a job that you take while you're working. It's a profession, right? They calculate like probabilities of incidents and accidents taking place, right? So you see them a lot in like in insurance, right? Yeah. So there's a number of exams you got to take while that in order to become a credentialed actuary. You can take some of them, just a number of exams, right? And so, but you can also take them while working. And so I have this distinction of actuarial consultant versus actuary because I passed all the math exams, and we were getting into actually the part where I think I was going to have the most fun. The project, I was consultant, so it's a project-based kind of things. The things that are like, here goes a real-world scenario. Apply some of the concepts you understand as an actuary towards this here, right? I was maybe like a year or two away from finishing things off. My parents were very much like, you're working at one of the top consulting firms on the planet. You have a job that like it's like recession proof. No matter what you do, it's like, and you've also spent like 6, maybe 8 years of my life down this path here. Go and get the credentials, right? But I knew at that point, I was like, no, I'm actually going to be on a totally different path. Like it was 2013, 2014, and I was like, I know that like I don't want to be an actuary. And I had met my now wife, then girlfriend. I was like, we're going to be traveling together. My credentials are going to be useful in the States, but if we decide to go live in Brazil, like I have to go and take a brand new thing, and like I got to a place where I was like, look, I am choosing to leave this profession behind, even though there's technically probably a year or two behind me. And since then I haven't looked back, so like it's different from a college perspective. I think like the college, like the degree gets applied far more in far many different environments than this one. And the degree is one thing, but there's also, well, let me finish this one thought first. So I say this to say, like, I know what it's like to be in the opportunity cost. I know what it's like to have everyone else go and say, like, but doesn't it make sense to just do this? You're so close, I get that. There's the element. Well, let me pause before I go forward. Let me pause before I go forward. We're gonna have to wrap up here, right at the top. We're gonna wrap up in a bit. What insight, what if anything is coming to you as I'm asking some of these questions and as you're hearing some of the stories that are being shared?
That I think I could understand both perspectives, and both of them could totally work. But at the end of the day, the decision, it has to come down to me and where I see my future going. Think about it in the long term, because parents can tell you one thing, some people can tell you another thing, but people are very similar, but everybody's different on a certain level too, right? And I think this is a decision that I'm gonna have to make for myself. And I've set up it's essentially reaffirmed these, what do I say? So if I achieve X by the end of June 2023, then I will feel comfortable with dropping out and being proud of it, right? And it reaffirms that's what I got to do.
All right, awesome. So we'll spend about 5 more minutes here, and then we'll wrap up all together, right?
Yeah, sounds good.
My invitation for you, Ryan, is like, look, my invitation here is to really take the time to see, to do your opportunity cost inventory. The way that I would do this, let me say this. There's a way that I will put it out there. You do what works for you, but think about this in a non-linear way, right?
Meaning?
Non-linear meaning think about as many different variables as possible.
Okay.
And all the different I don't know, the ways that things add up, right? So one of the things that I have found that I feel like I'm a better entrepreneur because of my college experiences, where later on in my third and fourth year, I got a chance to show up in a certain way in an environment that was easiest for me to show up without any kind of pretense. I feel like I was the most free until my more recent years that I've ever been in my life in that space, right? That's not a tangible that people will talk. They'll talk mainly about what are your job opportunities afterwards?
Right.
Can you make money from that? And they tend to be they tend to look at one slice of the pie, right? My thing here is in this case here, look at the whole pie. Look at all the pies. See where the burnt edges are. See what the toppings are, so on and so forth. The relationships that you're going to make, how's that going to impact the length of time? Okay, so 10 years down the line, what might be the case? If I have 2 or 3 other Slingshot experiences in my life, who are the kind of people that will be there? If school doesn't work out for me, what will happen? If the organization doesn't work out for you, I'm wishing them a lot of success. Businesses, startups especially, go up and down. You know what I mean? So it feels like you have a sweet deal right now.
Yeah.
And if that didn't last the whole 2 to 3 years or the 5 years or whatever time, where would that put you as well, right? So my thing, it feels to me, I hear that you have some different milestones. If I hit this, then boom. If I check these couple of boxes, we're good, right? I would give myself, my invitation to you is to take the time to do a true opportunity cost assessment, a true cost assessment. Look at it and just say okay, you have at least 3 scenarios, if not more, right?
Right.
But the 3 scenarios being staying on the path you are, going 100% one way, and going. There's no really. I don't think there's 100% school option for you, if I'm getting that right. You're I'm basically gonna keep playing either where I am right now or some degree less of school. Am I getting that right?
Yeah, you're 100% right.
Yeah. So let's not say there's no 100% school option for you. That doesn't feel viable. So if that's the case, give yourself that spectrum. Look at it and say all right, well, what if it took me X years? What if it took, whatever it is. And then ultimately, you'll come up with your conclusion. My general sense is for the goals that you have in life right now, and for the goals that might translate into something new in the future. Essentially, the biggest thing is for me is what will give you the most options, and what are you what would you want to be putting your effort into, right? Because I'm also I'm lazy, dude. I'm super lazy, and it's and that's why I'm so successful. Entrepreneurs do not want to go around knocking on everyone's door every single time. They come up with systems or they hire people that do it, right? So the lazy, there's a laziness in there. Of course, we may not always say it that way, but there's something there. And so my thing is what's going to give you the greatest amount of return for the least amount of effort, not just in the short term, but in the long term. And I'm not necessarily sure that assessment's finished yet.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many options that, what you mentioned, between 17 to 22, I would have never even imagined this life that I'm living now, right? And so it's there's going to be a lot of variables, right? There's a lot of different things to imagine. I'm a creative guy. I can get really imaginative, but I don't even think that my 100% imagination could imagine everything that.
Oh, dude.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I told you before, I just came back from Singapore, moved back here a year ago. No, you couldn't have asked me. I was living in New York City beforehand. You couldn't have guessed. You couldn't have me guess hey, in 5 years, where would you be? And I would say San Diego. I definitely want to say San Diego by way of 4 years in Singapore. I would have said New York City, being working in the tech company, doing something. My wife is awesome and a boss, and she's I'm ready to leave and move. And that was. How do we meet? You said, yeah. So my wife is a friend of a stranger, dude. What does that mean? I had finished working back in the time when I was an actuarial consultant, working in a consulting company. I was doing some audit work in the middle of January, and it was our busy season at work. And at that point I was still on the path of all right, I'm going to continue down this with this profession, and got home, was really tired, had a bottle of wine, Gewürztraminer. I remember, I will never forget that. And then my friend calls me. A friend from college calls me up, actually, and I hadn't talked to him in years. Like we hadn't but he calls me and says, "Hey, I'm available. Like, let's go out tonight." So I'm like, all right. Like I just finished this year. Like I'm not really trying to get into things. I'm tired. I probably have to go back in the morning, but you don't call me. Let's go. So we went out to a bar in the Lower East Side, and while we were there, started talking to a group of women, and one of them, in the middle of our conversation, just like stops me and is like, "Hey, this might be awkward, but I have a friend who I think you'd be absolutely perfect for. She's blonde and she's beautiful. Can I like connect you?" She wasn't at the bar. It was just like a complete stranger was like, "I think based on our conversation that you'd be good for with this other person." The two of us are now married and we have a child together.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the stranger, she was like, she's a best friend of hers, or
yeah, it was a really good friend of that stranger, and we started talking, and then things took off from there. But I could promise you that the day before, I had no clue that this person even existed, and I changed my profession as a result of like her opening me up to the idea of like, well, maybe we don't have to live in the US. I'm like, oh, you know, I had wanted an excuse to change my profession anyway, but like, you know, but that's when I was like, oh, if I do entrepreneurial stuff, then I could be here and I could be like, oh, I can have that freedom. I don't have to ask my boss for this. Like a whole new world opened up. And then she's like, hey, by the way, that thing we've been talking about, I think it should happen now. And then I was flying high in my tech world, you know, and then it was time for a new change. I started my life all over again. You know, I went out to Singapore and like started like figuring out how to do everything from there. I became a coach, did all this stuff. Then pandemic hits. A few years later, we have a pandemic hits. We have a child during the pandemic. We realized that like it's the right time to come back to the States because we want our child to be closer to family. And I start all over again.
Wow.
You know, and so like, and it's these things that I think about like when I hear your story, Ryan, I'm like, I don't think this guy knows how many slingshots he has available to him, you know? And it's like, and the thing is, I'm reaching back out to people who I met in my professional life, people I met in my college life, people I met in my high school. Every single person who's come across my life is means something invaluable to me, you know? It's just like, there's no way I would be able to like capture that or know to capture that earlier in the game. So as you're making your decisions, as you're looking through these things here, I would play on those space here where it's like, my friend, I think you've been blessed with a life that is going to be unlike most other people, you know? And what I want from you is not to worry about shiny object syndrome. I want you to be really good at making your choices. And when I make it, you make it for a reason. This is part of that process of shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so you can be like, I actually get really good at decision making. That like that skill set, you'd be good to go. All right. How does that feel for you? Let me just check in here as we wrap up this conversation.
After talking, I think you definitely have an idea worth spreading in you. Do you know what I mean by that? Meaning you got a TED Talk in you. You just have to find it, right? And I think you do some searching, you can get on stage.
You know what? It's funny, Ryan. I have multiple TED Talks in me. Like I have multiple TED Talks in me at this point in my life, and I know that I'll have even more. That's the thing. The level of abundance that lives within me is so vast, and the multiple TED Talks is like I'm gonna do one TED Talk, and then I'll come back in 2 years later and I'll do another one. I'll come back and like so it's not the idea of shiny object in that case. It's it's this one right now.
Right.
Later on, it's that next one. So I appreciate you recognizing that. And if the idea of that like continues to like, but if what you hear, you're like, hey, this should be what the TED Talk is, let me know. But I think the biggest thing here is I'm just like, I am so excited for like the things you don't even know you don't know.
Yeah, that's the best. You don't know.
That's the best thing. Yeah. And so my general thing is like just keep like position yourself to be able to take advantage of as much as you want. Choose it with focus, whatever it is, but like position yourself for that. Be willing to do whatever it takes to make whatever your real dream and vision is in life come to life, whatever path you take. You're going to live an unconventional life. Cool. Like, I just want options for you all like whatever it is, so that like, I don't know how to describe it, but I just know that like you have there's like infinite possibilities for you, dude. Right. And I hope you don't mind. I keep calling you dude, but I realize like it's about what to come out. Yeah. But it's like infinite possibilities there. So there's this element of like, all right, how do you play with being able to like keep choosing, given that you are going to have so many options, like your ability to get great at choosing. That's something I would say like that will serve you really well.
Do you know how to get on the TED stage, or what steps have you taken to get there so far?
I've taken none, because my general thing here is I'm not interested in being on a TED stage right now. I have a general thing where it's like I want to make enough impact and be so solid in my thing that it's not a TEDx stage. I'm just invited straight to the TED main stage.
Ooh,
so
I like that. Wow.
Yeah. I'm like TEDx. I'm like, I have many people who have organized TEDx in my life. Like, it's not like I can get on a TEDx stage. That's not the challenge. And I have people who are coaches that will help me do that. It's like, it's not to say that I wouldn't do a TEDx thing, but like my focus is like, how do I show up in the world so powerfully and make so much of an impact that I'm invited to main stage right off the bat, right? And be there. So that's where my thoughts on that is, first you got to do the work, and so that's what's on my mind right now. Ryan, I love to continue the conversation. We'll have time to do this, but I do have to step out here.
Yeah. We got we're good.
Yeah,
we're connected on LinkedIn, aren't we?
Yes, I believe so. If not, let's make this come here. Yeah. Thank you for the conversation. Yeah, I'm very excited for where your journey happens to go. Let's make sure we continue to stay connected on LinkedIn and beyond. There's more space, there's more things that are coming off. And generally speaking, whatever choice you make it the right one. And not because it's the right on paper, but because you are so committed to it that like you're like, whatever I decide is right, because I'm gonna make it right. Like no matter what, not looking back, but I'm gonna make it right. All right.
Sounds fair. Yeah.
All right, cool. Ryan, any closing thought before we end this, before we complete this conversation?
Thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, most certainly. And I want to really acknowledge you for being someone that like had this opportunity, like created this year. Like you put yourself in a position for us to find you, for us to be in this opportunity.
Right.
And so like not everyone does that. And I really acknowledge you for that. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.
We're just getting started. Take 10 seconds to think about your greatest insight from today's conversation. And if you're ready to go and bring this to a deeper, more applicable level for you, come and join us in an upcoming masterclass. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass to be coached live and to bring your aspirations, your goals, and your challenges and have them handled in real time. This is high flame, high impact, high transformation. Go to outliersedge.com/masterclass and come experience your next level of leadership.